What are you doing? Where are you going? My mum was sick at the time. What if I never see her again? What if? I mean, seriously? What if I stayed home and tripped over a cord in the lounge room and broke my neck and became a cripple? I mean, do,
Yes.
do I want the what ifs on an aeroplane or in a foreign country or whatever? Or do I want the what ifs I want to fall over at home because I'm too scared to go anywhere?
Yeah.
So, yes, I had crippling fear, definitely.
Welcome to Your Second Act, the podcast that proves that life doesn't have to end at 40, 50, or even 60, because when it comes to living your best life, age is just a number. Hi, gorgeous. Welcome back to another inspiring episode. The other day, I went to visit my parents down where I was raised in Wollongong, down the south coast of Sydney. And I was sitting in a restaurant and I bumped into an old school friend and we got chatting and I hadn't seen her in years. And she said, "Oh, by the way, I went to visit Ponty Health. You did a great episode with the lady who started it and it just spurred me on to wanting to know more about my menopause journey. And I went along. So thank you so much for doing that episode." That just lit me up inside that these episodes are making a difference in women's lives. Now, I don't always get to hear it, so if you can rate and review, I would so love that because then I know that what I'm doing is making a difference in your life. So thank you to Marina. It's a shout out to her that if she hadn't have told me that, I would have hoped that that episode would have made a change for somebody. But the fact that it made one for her, I feel so grateful for. So that's what keeps me going with this podcast. Now, today's episode is a little different. We're moving away from, say, women's health, but into a story that is super motivating and a really interesting and exciting one. How many of us daydream about life, how it could have been different? Maybe we think back to our 20s and wonder, what might have happened if we'd taken the chance, booked that trip, followed that little nudge, but we didn't? Life got busy, kids, work, responsibility, and all of it took over. And those daydreams kind of, got pushed to the side. But who says that you can't do that in midlife? My guest today did exactly that. At 55, she thought, it's now or never. She packed her bags, stepped right into the unknown and decided to travel solo. And it all started with walking the famous Camino. That one decision ended up changing everything. She fell in love, moved to Spain and built a whole new life on the other side of the world. And along the way, she also created a beautiful business that now helps other women experience the Camino in a really soulful, supported way as well. It's one of those stories that makes you just stop and think, maybe that life you daydream about isn't as far away as you think. But as I said before we get into this episode, if you could just take the time to rate and review this episode, it really does help my podcast get out there and into more ears. And as I said, just to help motivate someone else. And if one episode can help change someone else's life, then I really feel honored that I've been able to do that. So now let's just get straight into my conversation with Jennifer. Throughout the life of this podcast, I have listened to incredible stories of women changing their lives. And it sounds amazing on the other side, but the part I'm really fascinated by is the moment before it all happens, when it's still scary and it's really uncertain. I want to know, Jennifer, what was going on in your life when you first felt that pull to leave everything behind and just have the courage to actually just have a go?
Well, that was quite some time ago. I'll frame my story leading up to my final trip that has me now here living in Spain.
Yeah.
So when I was married and had the 2 kids, the cars, the house, everything that from the outer world is where we should be and how it should be. And I was happy. I was happy with all that. But then my kids grew up, they moved on, and all of a sudden I was looking at my life and thinking, well, what now? And I think a lot of women particularly get to this point because we've been so busy raising family and putting all our passion and energy and everything into this, thing that we love. And then it's not there anymore. And I, at that time, had said to my husband, let's travel. Let's rent the house out for a few years and go on an adventure. I was married when I was 20. So, I'm now 40 odd at that point. And he basically didn't want to. So I made the decision that I would probably have to go and do it on my own. So a funny little story, just starting that out with my adventures, was, I'd read somewhere, we'll start small and then, build up the courage to go and do something. So I decided to go on my own, which I hadn't ever done before, on a trip, and I went to Queensland, long way from home, off to Gold Coast.
Yeah.
But it was hilarious. I arrived and hired a car and off I went. I was on the Gold Coast, drove into the Gold Coast, no plans. That was my thing. Just let's see what unfolds.
You hadn't booked anything. You just
Nothing.
thought you just do it. Your first solo trip. Yep.
Yeah.
Courageous.
Because that's what I imagined I wanted to do, So I get to Queensland and there's thousands of people everywhere and I'm like, kids everywhere. And I'm like, what is going on here? It was schoolies.
Oh my gosh. The worst time to go.
Exactly. So I drove around, looked everywhere, no accommodation. I thought, okay, I'll drive out and go up the highway and see where I end up. So long story short, about midnight, I get to Lennox Head and I'm looking around, nothing available. And I thought, okay, I've got a car. So I pulled into a caravan park right next to a caravan where it felt a little bit safe and slept in the car. And then, of course, the sun, I know, first trip, right? Sun's coming in the window and I'm like, okay, I've got to get out of here before someone finds me. And I go to a coffee shop and he says to me, wow, you're up early, because he's just setting up. I told him the story and he said to me, oh, wow, you are in a bit of trouble here because I don't think there's anything available. But he said, I tell you what, if you need, my mum's got a spare room. Wow. And I was like, wow, So that was in the end, I went to the beach. I was talking to some people and they said to me, well, our kids were supposed to come up and they haven't, and we've got a flat in our house, and if you'd like, you can come and stay in that. And it was absolutely amazing. Cross the road from the beach, stunning. I had the most beautiful holiday. So I tell that story because for some people, the whole deal of getting somewhere and having nothing, that's the whole freak out already. They pack up and go home.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would have cried and yes, driven back.
Yeah. So anyway, turned out an amazing trip, and it actually was really literally the start of my courage to continue to go ahead. I in the end decided to leave my partner, got my own place, went into panic mode, got the first full-time job I'd had, in years. For about 6 years, I was working, happy, everything was fine, everything was good. And I had a conversation with my daughter and she said to me, I said something about I'm turning 48 this year. And she said, Mum, you're 49. And I was like, it was like this turning point for me. I was like, oh my God, I'm nearly 50. I'm working my butt off. all I'm doing is paying a mortgage on a rat wheel. I'm on my own. I've got a dog. I'm looking after, like nothing really after wanting to change my life changed
Yeah.
because fear had set back in again, when I was
Mm.
doing this, I have to work really hard, pay a mortgage. And that I was like, you know what, I'm selling. So, I'm going to go traveling. So I'm at this stage about 48. Oh, I was 48. Yeah, I was turning 49. So sold my house. Literally, the guy wanted a 2-week settlement. It took 2 weeks to sell, and he wanted a 2-week settlement, and he paid me to have a
Wow,
2-week
that was
settlement.
quick.
It was so unbelievably quick. It was crazy. And literally gave away 85-90% of my things, packed a bag and booked a round world trip, and off I went. Now, all sorts of things happened, but we haven't got time for all of that. But I could tell story after story on that trip. That was crazy. I was away for 9 months. I came home for the birth of my grandson. My daughter called me, totally unexpected, like freaked me out a little bit, but she called me and said, Mum, I'm pregnant. So I was like, well, I'm not missing that. So I come home, set myself up again in a rental property and studied. She had baby one. She fell pregnant again very quickly, had baby two. So I was home for quite a few years, happy, studied transpersonal art therapy and a few other things, a few shamanic courses and things, and decided that I would do one-on-one therapy sessions and run women's groups. I've always had a real passion for working with women. And that was all going great. Doors were opening, things were moving, things were happening. But and my grandsons, oh my God, like loves of my life. It was amazing,
Course.
you know. But this deep inner stir, that it just didn't feel right. I'm now 55. And, I'm a nana and I'm a mum and all these things. And I was like, okay, in desperation, or I was working with my intuition a lot at this point, but I said, okay, universe, please help me because, fear's setting in. I'm thinking about I want to travel, but I'm not sure. Am I just running away? Or, what's going on here? Like, I'm happy, everything's working, but there's just this thing. So I said, I want to dream tonight. I want to know, am I traveling or am I continuing to pursue my, art therapy work here in Australia? And I woke up that morning and I'd had a dream that I was booking a ticket to Thailand. So
Wow, what a sign.
I know. So that was the beginning of the next phase of my life, or the next
Yeah.
adventure. Again, next morning, I booked a retreat in Thailand, went and bought a whole heap of boxes. And when I make a decision, and especially when I ask for a sign and I get one, I follow through.
So Jennifer, what I'm
So,
hearing is that you're quite a spiritual person.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I I think from the time of always have been, but I had a lot of time living on my own, being single, and I had a lot of time to think about, well, who am I now? After this divorce and being a mother and having been so young too when I became a mother. I'm like, who am I in this world? So that
Important
developed
question.
more and more. Yeah.
Mm.
And then studying the transpersonal art therapy really opened me up more to that. So what happened next was I packed up again and started packing. I've got my Thailand trip booked. It was like 4 weeks away or something. I could get out of my lease agreement really quickly. That wasn't a problem. Got my boxes, and I got a phone call from a girlfriend, and she said to me, "Oh, I don't know why, but I have to drop a book off to you this morning, and I'm on my way now." And I was like, "Oh, whatever, you know." Uh, she actually channels and is a very spiritual person. She lives the wildest life. You've got no idea, this woman. But anyway, she came around and she had the book Shirley MacLaine, Camino. I think it's called Camino, but it was by Shirley MacLaine.
Right.
I was like, "Oh, okay." And she said, "Oh, I don't know, darling." And she knew nothing about my decision. I told her that morning when she dropped the book off that this is what I was doing. She said, "Oh, maybe that's why you had to have the book." But I didn't really, think a lot about it. I was off to Thailand. And to be honest, I was thinking, Thailand of all places, what am I going there for? I'd been there several times and love it, but for a bit of a holiday, not extended time. Anyway, then about the middle of that week, I was in a bookstore looking for a gift, and a lady walked in, and I was at the counter. She was wrapping what I'd bought, and this woman walked in and said, "Oh, have you got any books on Camino de Santiago?" And the lady in the counter said, "Well, yeah, of course we have." And this woman turned around, she looked me square in the face, and she said, "Well, I'm about to walk Camino de Santiago." And I was like, "Hey, that's twice this week that's been put in front of me." So, okay, I'd seen the movie. I knew a little bit about it, but I'm not a hiker or walker. Yeah. The furthest I would walk would be the corner shop. I mean, I'm the jump in the car and go there person.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, that's a bit weird. And then on the Friday of the same week, I had a funeral to go to. And it was a friend of mine's mother had passed, and it was like 2 weeks after she died that the funeral was. So when I was at the funeral, I said to my girlfriend, "So what happened? Like, why, such a delay with the funeral?" And she said, "Well, can you believe it? I had literally just landed in Spain.
Oh,
My partner was walking Camino de Santiago." Yeah.
No
And
way.
yeah, I've got goosebumps telling you, because seriously, I
What
stood
a
in front of her and
sign.
just cried. And she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, nothing, don't worry about it." So I was like, looks like I'm going to Camino de Santiago. That was the start of all these doors opening, all these people coming to me with stuff I needed and telling me about it and helping me prepare. So, yeah, I went off, did my retreat in Thailand, met some really wonderful people there. And in fact, one of my first customers on Camino was a lady I met at that retreat. But anyway, so off I went. I did my retreat, felt fit and ready within myself emotionally and everything, and turned up in Spain. I'd never been to Spain. I'd never walked anywhere. I had no idea what I was doing. And there I was.
So it sounds like you had obviously this calling to go there, which is, the story in itself is quite amazing. And clearly that you were meant to go, which is insane itself. But I want to ask, because we all get these ideas, right? That we want to do things, we want to change, but it's that bloody fear that keeps us stuck. And I think personally, I have never traveled on my own. I'm 55 years of age. I've never, ever done it. And I'm always interested to know from others, how do you get the courage to do it? And I love your story of just you started small by going to the Gold Coast. And then I guess the fear lessens, would you say? And it's like, well, I can do this, therefore, why can't I go overseas and do it on my own? I think a lot of us feel the desire to want to do that, but we hold ourselves back because we think I might as well just do it with a friend. If I'm single, I'll go with a friend. What's the advantage of doing it by yourself?
Oh, that first holiday for me in Queensland, I'd always travelled, with my husband, my kids, with friends. I hadn't even really had many girlfriend holidays, only maybe weekends.
Mm,
That first trip for me was like heaven on earth, honestly. I ate when I wanted. I walked out the door when I wanted. I got up when I wanted. I'd never experienced that.
yeah,
There were no disruptions to my day. There were no disruptions to anything I wanted to do.
yeah,
And it was so freeing. It felt so good. And yes, you're right. The fear is there. When I then made the decision to go on my big trip, and now I'm going over to Europe and South America,
yeah,
and
wow.
I did a round world ticket. I was petrified on the outside, but inside there was a real calm. And I guess what I'm saying to you is you have to know that you want it and you're going to have the fear, but you've just got to take the first step and then the second step, and you just do it anyway. I mean, our monkey mind, I call it, mine was on fire. What are you doing? Where are you going? My mum was sick at the time. What if I never see her again? What if,
Mm,
what if, what if, what if? I mean, seriously, what if I stayed home and tripped over a cord in the lounge room and broke my neck and became a cripple? I mean, you know, do,
yes,
do I
yeah,
want the what ifs on an aeroplane or in a foreign country or whatever? Or do I want the
true,
what ifs I want to fall over at home because I'm too scared to go anywhere, you
yeah,
know? So, yes, I had crippling fear, definitely. And it's interesting you say it to me because a lot of my girlfriends actually have said to me, "Oh, yeah, but you're courageous." I'm not. Well, no, I'm exactly the same as everybody else. But it's like anything, when you go for a new job and you're terrified, you're
yeah,
doing something new, you're terrified. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know the next step. You don't know will you like it, won't you like it, what's going to happen when I do that. You just
mm,
don't know.
yeah. And you've just got to, from what I'm hearing from you, you've just got to step into it and just say, well, if I fail, if it fails, then at least I tried. And what I
Yeah,
love about your story is off you go to Spain, and my gosh, everything changed for you.
yeah, yeah,
So the Camino was the start, wasn't it? Because before we hopped on, I could hear the church bells in the
yeah.
background. You're living in Spain. You're living a completely different life now. And that is so exciting. So from the Camino, what happened? I hear that you fell in love.
Yes, that's right. Yep. And that's a real timing. It almost felt like a destined thing when it happened.
Right.
So I was, I can't even remember how many weeks into my Camino, and I was in this village called Santo Domingo de la Calzada,
Oh,
and on Camino there's these on the ground there's shells markers, And I've got the photo, and why I ever stopped at this one, because it's ugly, it's uneven and whatever, but I was stopped with my feet on either side taking a photo. And
So it's like a
voice just,
landmark that you've achieved.
yeah.
You've gotten to that certain point. Okay.
Or they're actually shells, like made of steel or brass, that are
Right.
set into the concrete,
Yeah.
and that's the path of the Camino. So I was just in this street, I saw one, and I was taking a photo, and I had a voice come up from behind me say, "Can I help you?" And I was like, I mean, hey ladies, if you want to meet a man, go to Camino. There's so many of them.
Oh,
And
really?
oh, yeah. And I'd had a few, guys sort of, naturally, it's just you meet so many people, you're talking to people. So, and lots of men who had, approached me, talked to me, wanted to have dinner or whatever. But anyway, this voice comes up and I'm like, oh, another one, And then I just went, no, I'm fine. I didn't even look up. I
Yeah.
just continued to do what I was doing. And then he goes, are you very certain? And I was like,
Oh.
what the hell, So I turned around. The sun was actually beaming in my face. I couldn't really see him. All I could see were these eyes that just looked so warm and friendly. And I was like, no, I'm fine, thank you, And he goes, oh, okay. And he walked off. And then about 10 minutes later, I bumped into him again. And then this was just a continual thing over the next 3-4 days. He was just there. Everywhere I went, I'd go to dinner. He was in the restaurant too. I'd be walking out on the path and there he'd be, until one day he was actually sitting at a coffee shop waiting for me. Because he had walked Camino at the beginning of that year. I was walking in the end that year, and he was walking it to decide if he actually wanted to continue in his marriage or not. And when I met him, he was in Spain picking up his divorce papers, and he just thought he'd add in a week. So
that was destiny, wasn't it? Working its
well,
magic.
it felt a bit that way, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Before you go on about this amazing story, which I love, just for the listeners who may not know about what Camino is, can you just give me a brief, take on what is Camino and why do so many people go on it? Because I've heard so many great things about it.
yeah. Well, it's a pilgrimage. So,
Right.
in this day and age, it's being, let's say, managed and looked after by the Catholic Church. So, a pilgrimage in itself means you're going somewhere or walking to a destination with the intention of arriving somewhere that means something to you. So it can be from a spiritual perspective, a religious perspective. You could have health issues, or like my now husband, he wanted to, decide if he was going to continue in his marriage or not. And so he took the time out of life, our day-to-day life, to walk the Camino. And I guess what the Camino really is about, and walking a pilgrimage is about for most people, is getting up each day and just putting one foot in front of the other. And it's like I'm saying to you about having courage. It's just getting up, having the courage and taking that first step.
Yeah.
So when you're on Camino, you have got nothing else you have to do, nothing else you have to think about. There's no real organising or planning or anything. You just walk. And the beauty of the Camino is, from my perspective and from a spiritual perspective, is whenever I'm on Camino, I set an intention of what I want to get from that Camino, what I want to find out about myself, or what I want to open up for myself in life, the decisions I have to make, let go of grief. People do it for so many reasons. And you just get up every day, put one foot in front of the other. But there are people from all over the world, like different cultures, people that you normally probably in our day-to-day life would just walk past. You wouldn't think to say hello to that 20-year-old guy, let's say as a woman.
Yeah.
Yet on the Camino, you do, and people talk. And it's almost like all the crap about all the, no, let's not say crap, all the surface level stuff of life seems to just drop. And you're just this person on this path, looking for something, doing something, trying to work something out. And so is everybody else. So you have these incredible, deep conversations with strangers that just don't happen
No,
in
that sounds
general life.
amazing. My gosh.
Yeah.
So what was your intention when you started this walk? Camino, which, I mean, I know a bit of Spanish, meaning the walk. Isn't that
The
right?
walk,
That's what it
yeah.
means? Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
Exactly.
what were you hoping to get out of the Camino walk?
Well, as I said, I was literally like, I started it with no anything. I just did it because I had asked and I was put all that in front of me, so I went.
Yeah.
But I had read the book by Shirley MacLaine and looked at a few other things and realised that pilgrimage is also about, as I said, setting an intention. So my intention was shake the shackles. On my first Camino, that was my intention. Shake the shackles, like stop living my life based on society. I grew up in a very religious family. The dogma of religion, the societal norms, the your parental needs of you as their child, all of those things. And particularly my daughter had said to me that I was becoming a bit of a bitch to men. And I'd been single for a long time. So I thought maybe there was something in it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to let go of my anger, because I think this could go into a deeper story, which I won't, but I think coming from a religious family and being, let's say, judged and watched by God and the men and your father and everybody in life that had control of you, I just wanted to let that all go.
For sure.
And what was funny was immediately, as I said, I was meeting a lot of men, but I had a lot of really beautiful, gorgeous young men that would be talking to me on the path. And honestly, I'd say 80% of them were there, like my husband, my now husband, working out the loves in their life. Were they going to continue with this romance? Because the women that were with them were pressuring for, let's say, to get married or to have babies or whatever. And they were mindfully walking a Camino to really honour both themselves and the woman, to work out what they wanted to do. So it was, from the shake the shackles perspective, it was just a huge eye-opener to be around all of these beautiful men. I met some crazy ones too, but all these I won't tell you those stories.
Well, they sound interesting.
Oh, yeah, they were. But
you've
you know,
met your I was going to say, but you ended up meeting the man that you
and
were destined to meet. How
yeah,
amazing is that? And he was walking it thinking, am I going to continue on with my marriage? And your paths crossed.
yeah, yeah,
That's so special.
incredible.
That's so amazing. And you had that
Yeah.
inner knowing when you met him that it was more than
Oh,
just an attraction or a bit of a
and that
fling on the Camino.
no, well, I was determined not to fling on the Camino because there was too
Right.
many men and too much of that does actually go on. But I was determined for that not to happen.
Yeah.
So he actually, he left after about a week or so. We walked together. We talked. I don't think I have had such deep, long conversations with one man in my whole life like I had with him while we were. But you know, we were. You can imagine you're on you're on the path early in the morning and you're walking sometimes
All
8
day.
hours.
Yeah.
You know, and we were just walking and talking the whole time. And I think I talked to him more in that week that we were together, than I did to my husband, my first husband, my whole life.
Yeah.
Our whole 29 years together or whatever it was. So it's really interesting, but yeah, scary. It was scary for me because I knew straight away when I met him. But I was also looking at him and thinking, what the hell? He's this great big guy with a beard and like someone I could never for 5 minutes imagine, you know. But he was just so beautiful. And I
Oh.
just straight away, I was like, oh my God, this guy is so special. And then, you know, the stories come in. Oh my God, but what am I doing? He's from Spain. I'm from
Mm.
here, Australia. It's literally the antipode, the opposite
Yes.
of this where I am now, you know. And I was like, oh, what am I doing? Should I do this? And we exchanged details because he was leaving. And I still had 5 or 6 weeks to go of my Camino. And, you know, we were chatting and what have you. And then he said to me, oh, I'm going to come and meet you. And I said, no, 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 this is like my Camino. It's not happening. And so I said, he lived in Barcelona. So I said, all right, well, when I'm finished, I'll come and let's see, you know, where we're at. So that's what I did. When I finished my Camino, I had to go buy some civilian clothing because I only had a backpack.
Right.
And yeah, came to Barcelona. Now, when you want to talk about fear, that's when everything like really started to set in. I mean, I had this love bubble couple of months with him, and then I needed to go home. They just said to me, Mum, you know, like it's your life. You if we had an opportunity to go off somewhere, we'd go. So if you want to do this, do it. And I was sick with, you know, everything
Guilt.
came crashing in on me. Yeah. I was
I
just about to
bet.
say,
Yeah. I'm sure
everything
I'd feel
crashed
that
in on
too.
me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a
Hmm.
sister. My father's in his late years.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I doing? You
I'm
know, how can I
responsible.
be?
All those
Yeah,
things that we're conditioned to
yeah,
think. I can't
yeah.
just, throw it all away and then go and live on the other side of the world because I've fallen in love with this man. I know people must have thought, actually, what did your friends say? Did they think that you were crazy or were they all like, do it?
They were in a bit of disbelief, I think. One of my girlfriends said to me, she's no longer a girlfriend, but she said to
Okay.
me, oh, go off and have your fun. It probably won't last long, you know.
Oh,
Um,
well, she's eating her
other
words now, isn't she?
girlfriends, sorry.
She's eating her words now, isn't she?
Well, yeah, I'm still here 9 years, nearly 10 years later.
Wow.
Most of my girlfriends were really, really loving, caring, really happy for me. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that I would even think about it. It's
Mm.
most women that I don't know personally or don't know me that would say to me, "Oh my God, how could you? I could never do that. Like, how could you do that?" And let me tell you that the first year, the guilt and the shame of doing it nearly killed me. I
Yeah.
cried a whole year. My, why, Kim is my partner's name, why he wanted to stay with me was just beyond me, because I literally spent the first year uh, like torturing myself, fighting with myself. But deep down, I just knew it was right. Like my intuition deep down kept me here, you
Yeah.
know?
Jennifer, I think the fact it's so easy for us to not do things. I think it's
Oh,
easy
yeah,
for us to give into our guilt, the noise in our head. And what I think is wonderful about you is that you push through all of that and you are now living the life that you have always wanted to live. And I'm sure your children, they miss you, I'm sure, incredibly. But how amazing it is it to know that you are there, you're happy, and you're fulfilled. And
yeah.
how can anyone begrudge someone else that? So
Well, yeah.
I'm in awe of what you have done because it's not
Thank you.
easy to do it. And that's what I meant at the beginning when I started the episode. It's so good to hear these wonderful stories and oh now look at her, but it's the journey of how you
Yeah.
got there and to let others know that these things are possible. You have to have that self-belief. And unfortunately, there are people that just don't feel it or don't want to because of fear, because of worthiness. That's another thing. Do I deserve to
Yeah.
feel this? Because I've
Yeah.
been told no. Or, come on, you're in your 50s, you're in your 60s. Really? Like, that's what
Yeah.
young people do. It's that bullshit narrative, right? But
Yeah.
hey, women like you say, no, I matter. I still have so many more years of my life to live. Why can't I live it doing what I want? And I think that is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. Look, and can I tell you that, you know, in Australia, it's probably a little more closed to seeing this type of thing happening. But here, I cannot tell you how many really amazing women I have met who are
Well,
doing what I'm doing. Honestly,
really?
so many, yeah, so many from all different parts of the world who are actually living their lives. I've met quite a few Australian women. I've met a few. One lady in particular, her husband passed away, and her kids, were like mine, having families and everything else. And she was like, "What am I doing here? I love Spain." So she just shipped her life over here and she's
Wow.
here. Her and her husband had sort of talked about doing that maybe one day. And she was like, "I'm doing it." And she said the same. She was terrified,
Ugh, for
terrified,
sure.
you know. But and look, some people do these things, it doesn't turn out. And
Mm.
what's my future? Someone asked me this the other day. I talked to a lady who's actually writing a book about the same topic, coming to this point in your life where you're still young, you're in your 50s, and your kids have moved out, or even if you haven't had family, you're in your 50s, you've reached the peak of your career, let's say. And then you go, "Well, I might live for 30 more years.
That's right.
Well, what actually am I doing?" you know, um, you just have to do something. You've
Yeah.
just got to move. Otherwise, I've got other friends who just, go home and nothing's changed. Nothing. They're just in their fear of
Yeah.
even, I don't know, meeting new people. It's
Yeah.
just,
It's right. Fear
it's
can become so
debilitating.
crippling. It is. Absolutely. But what's so great about your story is the fact that, you not only did you fall in love with your partner, but now you've got your own business and
Yes, yeah.
you're encouraging other women to come along and do this Camino walk. Tell me more about that. How did that all come about?
Oh, that was, yeah, amazing. So when I had first moved here, and as I said, we were in a love bubble for quite a few months, and we actually went off and walked together the Portuguese Camino. It was a way of like just sealing the deal, that
Mm,
we did want to
like that.
be together. Yeah. So we were here, and I'm thinking now, okay, how does this work? All right,
Yeah.
I'm now in love with a man on the other side of the world. How do I navigate this? I'm Australian. How, how do I stay in Spain? He has had past health issues. He's good now, but he's had past health issues that would make it almost impossible for him to get a visa to come to Australia. So anyway, long story short, I ended up getting an Italian passport because I was married before to an Italian, which I had no idea I could have. So
Brilliant.
I've now decided I'm here. Okay, I've made this move. I'm staying here. I've got a passport. Everything's fine. And then the fear set back in. It's like, what the hell am I going to do now? Now I'm in a foreign country. I'm in a new relationship. I've got a language I don't understand, two languages, in fact, because I'm in Barcelona, which is Catalan,
Yeah.
and Camino is Spanish. It's in the center of Spain. So it's two languages and whatever. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And my partner said to me, you told me when we were on Camino that you had a dream of running women's groups on Camino. And that had like, that was sort of all gone into the background. I'm dealing with all this other stuff now and all my emotions and everything. And I said, you're right. Yeah, that is, I did. I had a literal dream. And then I thought about it a lot when I was walking. And that was going to be my plan when I got back to Australia. But everything else had happened. And he said to me, well, come on, let's do it. And I was like, really? And he's retired. And poor thing, he's not anymore. and he said, and he said to me, yeah, like, come on, I'll help you get it all started. So we went off for, I think it was nearly 3 months on a big field trip from the beginning to the end of the French way, which is the most popular and most people know about. We went to the beginning and the end of it and did a big research field trip. I had my first women's group in 2018 and then another group in the end of that year as well, two big groups. And I was like, this could work. And he said to me, but you're actually denying half of humanity by only having women's groups. And I was like, yeah, well, I know, but that's was what my dream was. And he said, well, you can still do that, but let's, make
Include
it
men.
a full business. So
Yes.
then we,
Yeah.
built the website, did the whole thing, built the whole platform, went and researched other parts of the Camino, built it all up, and off we went.
And you're
And
still going. Wow.
haven't
So
looked
you said
back.
10 years later? Is that right?
Nearly 10 years I've been here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an amazing
Mm.
story. And,
Yeah.
I think what I'm getting out of this is really listen to your intuition. Don't ignore it, because we don't want to get to the age of 80 and wish we had done it. And you are proof
Exactly.
that you push through, and even with all those amazing signs, and I'm all about that. I think
Yeah.
signs are, you can miss them, but when you really open yourself up to seeing them, they're there. They're there
Yeah.
sometimes to really slap you in the face. And
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it's incredible. You've really got me thinking as well. And I mean, gosh, I really want to do a Camino. So would you recommend to do the Camino by yourself, or obviously as part of a tour or with friends? Because that would be interesting. What do you think you get more out of, on your own or with others?
Look, it's such a personal decision.
Mm,
Um, if you can muster up the courage to do it on your own,
yeah,
I think it's the most incredible thing you can do, because you tend to connect more with the people around you.
yeah,
You tend to be more open. Whereas when you're with a friend, you can get in your little thing and be having your great old time and sort of miss a lot of what's out there around you. That's, I think, honestly, that would be it's the ultimate. But a lot of people just can't. And for so many reasons, people can't.
and
It's
that's
like,
okay. Yeah,
yeah, so that's why groups. I think what my clients love is, because I'm here in Spain, if something does feel uncomfortable or they're not, aware of and they need help, they just ring me and I'm there. I'm in the same time frame, the same time zone. So I can support them. So that helps. I've talked to a lot of women who were very afraid to go, who really wanted to go, and they'd ring me and, we talk it through. And so it's funny, I'm still doing my thing with women that I've always wanted to do, but I'm doing a lot more of it one to one.
yeah,
Women who are really want to do this thing, but it's the first step,
yes,
it's taking the
exactly.
step. And so I
Oh,
work with
wow.
them to get to the point of being able to take the step.
Yeah. Love that, Jennifer. I love that what you're doing for other women. And I think the best thing is you've walked in their shoes. You
Yeah,
know exactly how it feels. And that, for me, means everything, because you see a lot of these tours or people speaking about, you should do this, you should do that. But when you can actually speak to someone who's relatable and you can ask them the questions, and basic questions, because there'd be so
yeah.
many of them, like, what
Oh,
happens if I
God,
feel
yeah.
lonely?
Yeah.
It can be anything like that. It's great that you have that resource that people can reach out to you. So I think that's amazing. I'm definitely going to leave all your information in the show notes if people want to look into it. But thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
story. I love a
Thank
story
you.
like this, and it's all possible. And yours, ended with romance and moving to Spain and listening to the beautiful church bells in the background. It's
Yeah.
pretty
Did you just
romantic.
hear them again?
I did. Jennifer, I
I
love to
love
end.
them.
I bet. I remember, traveling, and then you just hear them and you think you you probably don't, you might take that for granted because you're kind of listening to them. But when you're traveling, and it's such a beautiful
Oh, yeah.
sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Oh,
it's another thing I do now from all of my travels. I remember when I first went to Rome and I was walking around there, and, the Romans are just doing their work. And I thought, how can they just walk around here and see and
yes.
not see all this,
I know.
But you
I know.
do,
Yeah.
But now what's beautiful when I come home is, the currawongs, the kookaburras, the birds. I mean, I'm so much more aware of them. I've always loved
There.
kookaburras, but they were
Yes,
just
they
there,
are.
And now when I go home, oh my God, they just give me so much joy when I hear them.
Yeah.
It's like the church bells,
Yeah.
And I come back home here. I've got two homes. So I come back home here and the church bells are ringing and the seagulls because I live by the sea. And, that's my home. But you become more aware of your surroundings and what's
Yeah,
around you. And yeah, it's
absolutely.
beautiful.
Oh, sounds amazing. Well, I'd love to keep going, but obviously we've got to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Um, I always like to end my episodes with an inspirational quote. Would you like to share one with us that really touches you and means something
Yeah.
to you?
Yeah. One of my favorites because, as I've said, trusting your intuition, living by your intuition, feel the fear because your intuition doesn't mean that you're going to go to something fabulous and wonderful, but it will lead you where you need to be going. So follow it, follow it, follow it. And
Yeah.
the quote that I love is, it's, but what if I fall? And then the response in the quote is, oh, but darling, what if you fly?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
for me, I remind myself of that when I'm going to do something new. It's like, okay, but yes, we're so conditioned to think of all the what ifs. But what if, So, oh my God, step out your door, break your cycles, and just open up. Even if it's just a stupid little thing like get on a train in Sydney and go inland. I don't know even which way the trains go. Go somewhere you've never been before and spend the night in your own hometown,
Yeah.
wherever you
Yeah.
live, whatever. Just what if? Who
What
knows
if?
what's going to be around that corner? Just do it. That's
Love it.
how
Great
I'll
advice. Yes,
leave it
great
off.
advice.
And look
And you're
at
living
you.
proof.
You're a living proof yourself here doing a podcast and,
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
helping other
that's right.
women to hear these stories. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. Good on
Yeah.
you
Thank
as
you. I
well.
feel
And
it's a
thank you so
privilege.
much for the
Oh,
opportunity. I've loved it.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story, Jennifer. And you never know, might bump into you on the Camino one of these days.
Well, I'm hoping we bump into each other in Australia when I do come home as well. So
100%.
I'll
Absolutely.
see you Camino and at home.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Your Second Act. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could rate and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to me.